You checked their profile again. You told yourself you wouldn't, but you did. Maybe it was an old classmate. Maybe a coworker. Maybe someone you have never even met. And for a moment, just a moment, you felt something shift inside you. A quiet sting. A low hum of not enough. You closed the app and told yourself to stop. But here is the thing. You were never going to stop. Because the part of your brain doing the comparing is not the part that listens to reason. It is ancient. It is automatic. And for most of human history, it kept you alive. Psychologists call it social comparison. Leon Festinger named it in 1954. His theory was simple on the surface. When you lack objective information about your own abilities or standing, your brain turns to other people as a measuring stick. You look outward to understand yourself. But what Festinger could not have known in 1954 is how deep this runs. How it is not just a habit or a personality flaw. How it is wired into the very structure of how your brain processes reality. Here is what your brain is actually doing when it compares. It is not being petty. It is running an ancient survival calculation. For 2 million years, your ancestors lived in small groups, bands of roughly 50 to 150 people. In that world, your position in the group determined almost everything. Whether you ate, whether you were protected, whether you found a mate, whether your children survived. The higher your social standing, the more likely you were to pass your genes forward. The lower your standing, the more likely you were to end up alone, unprotected, and dead. Your brain learned to monitor the group constantly. It tracked who had more, who had less, who was rising, who was falling. Not because it was jealous in the way you would understand jealousy now, but because that information was survival data. It was as critical as knowing where the water was or which berries were poisonous. The moment you stopped tracking your social position was the moment you became vulnerable. And here is the twist. That monitoring system never switched off. Neuroscientist Sarah Brosnan at Georgia State University ran a now famous experiment with capuchin monkeys. She trained them to exchange a small rock for a reward. When every monkey got a cucumber slice, they were perfectly content. Then she changed the rules. Some monkeys started receiving grapes, which are sweeter, more valuable. The monkeys still getting cucumber slices noticed immediately. Some threw the cucumber back at the researcher. Some refused to participate at all. They did not just stop wanting the cucumber. They became visibly distressed by the inequality itself. These are monkeys. They have no Instagram, no career ladders, no college admissions anxiety. But they felt something that looks unmistakably like the sensation you get when someone your age is further ahead than you. Because that sensation did not start with modern life. It started tens of millions of years ago, in the neural architecture you share with every primate on this planet. So your brain compares. It always has. The question is not whether it will compare. The question is what it compares against. And this is where the modern world has done something that your ancient brain was never designed to handle. For 2 million years, the comparison pool was small. You measured yourself against the 50 to 150 people you actually lived with. That is a manageable group. That is a group where you knew everyone, where your position was real and observable, where the feedback was immediate and honest. If you were the best hunter in the band, you knew it. If you were struggling, you knew that too. The data was local. The competition was human-scaled. Now your brain wakes up and is handed a comparison pool of 8 billion people. Every morning, before you have eaten breakfast. Psychologist Timothy Wilson at the University of Virginia has written extensively about the gap between what the human mind evolved to process and what the modern world actually asks it to handle. He calls it the psychological immune system, your brain's built-in ability to rationalize, protect, and stabilize your sense of self. But that system was calibrated for a small tribe. It was never meant to absorb a curated highlight reel of every successful person on Earth simultaneously. When you scroll through your feed, your brain is not interpreting what it sees as entertainment. It is interpreting it as social data. Real, urgent, relevant data about where you stand in the group. Every image of someone's success, someone's beauty, someone's relationship, someone's achievement, your brain processes that the same way your ancestors' brain processed seeing a rival return from the hunt with twice the meat. As a signal, as a threat, as a gap between where you are and where you should be. And here is the cruelest part. You are comparing your insides to everyone else's outsides. You know every doubt you have ever had, every failure you have carried quietly, every morning you woke up feeling behind. But when you look at someone else's life, even someone you know well, you only see the surface. The curated moments, the wins they chose to share, the angle they chose to present. Your brain does not account for this asymmetry. It takes your raw, unfiltered self-knowledge and stacks it directly against their edited highlight reel. And every single time, you come up short. Not because you're less, but because the comparison was never fair. Researcher Sonja Lyubomirsky at the University of California has spent decades studying why some people are more resilient to this trap than others. What she found is that the most chronically unhappy people are not those with the worst circumstances. They are the most relentless social comparers. The more automatically and frequently someone evaluates themselves relative to others, the lower their baseline happiness, regardless of whether they are actually doing well or poorly by any objective measure. The comparison itself is the wound. But here is the part that should genuinely stop you cold. Upward comparison, comparing yourself to someone doing better, makes you feel worse. That part, you know. But downward comparison, measuring yourself against someone struggling more, should make you feel better. And for a moment, sometimes it does. But research consistently shows that the relief is short-lived and leaves something quietly corrosive behind. Because the brain does not just want to know you are better off than someone else. It wants to know you are secure. It wants to know your position is safe. And the habit of comparison itself, in any direction, keeps the anxiety alive. You are never done. There is always another measurement, another benchmark, another gap to calculate. This is by design, not by anyone's plan, but by the logic of survival. A brain that was satisfied with its position would stop monitoring. A brain that stopped monitoring would become vulnerable. So your brain never lets the game end. The measuring never stops. Because stopping, for 2 million years, was dangerous. What does this mean for the life you are actually living right now? It means that the sting you feel when someone younger gets the thing you wanted is not weakness. It is ancient. It means that the quiet satisfaction of being ahead, however briefly, was never going to last, not because of anything wrong with you, but because it was never supposed to. The system was built for motion, not for rest. And it means that when you closed that app and told yourself to stop, you were asking a 2 million-year-old circuit to just not do what it was built to do. Which is remarkable, honestly. That you can even ask that question. That you can step outside the mechanism and observe it. Your ancestors could not do that. They just felt the pull and moved accordingly. You get to notice the pull. You get to name it. You get to ask what it is actually telling you and whether that information is real or just the ancient noise of a brain built for a world that no longer exists. The next time you feel that quiet sting, that low hum of not enough, know what it is. Know where it came from. It is not your worth being measured. It is your brain doing what it was built to do in a world it was never built for. You checked their profile again. You told yourself you wouldn't. But now you know why you did. And knowing that is the beginning of something your ancestors never had, a choice.